607 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Finally a Friday. Hope you're doing well. Remember, you can always watch us on YouTube, Facebook, 997WTN.com as well. And we've got all kinds of apps out there as well. You can find all the links at 997WTN.com. So one of the things that I find fascinating is that Democrats clearly believe anyway that they have found their template on how to get rid of one Donald Trump. And they're using the same template to try to get rid of other Republicans as well. Now, in the 5 o'clock hour, and I know a lot of people are just joining us here in the 6 o'clock, so I'm going to replay this commercial. It is the first commercial for Joe Biden as we enter 2024, and it's a campaign video. And basically what Joe Biden is doing, and I know that you'll be shocked by this, basically what Joe Biden is doing is he is parroting what he did in 2020 regarding this supposed threat to democracy. Listen.
I've made the preservation of American democracy the central issue of my presidency. I believe in free and fair elections and the right to vote fairly and have your vote counted. There's something dangerous happening in America. There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy. All of us are being asked right now, what will we do to maintain our democracy? History's watching. The world is watching. Most important, our children and grandchildren will hold us responsible. The Vice President and I have supported voting rights since day one of this administration. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. America is still a place of possibilities where the power resides with we, the people. That's our soul. We are the United States of America. There is nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
One of the things that I thought was interesting is, and I mentioned in the 5 o'clock hour, I've got another angle that I'm going to do here, but one of the things that I did mention in the 5 o'clock hour, just so you know, is that it feels like a give up by the Biden administration in the sense that there's so many other things that are going on in this country that the American people are really worried about. Yet here he is going back to the same tired talking point. And so maybe, perhaps, just maybe, this will be a jump the shark moment for the American people with Joe Biden. So that's part of the conversation. The other thing he said in there, and you heard it, where he says, well, the Biden administration, we've been supporting voting rights since day one, or something to that effect. And when I heard that, one of the first things that I thought of was all of that Jim Crow 2.0 BS that was going on in Georgia. Remember all that? And how that was an absolute blatant lie. And everybody knew it was a lie. Yet here you are, Joe Biden now saying once again that they've been preserving voting rights, when in reality what they've been doing is lying about the Republicans. And as you know, because you listen to Nashville's Morning News, when that whole story broke and then they had the election in Georgia and all of those racist Republicans were trying to suppress the black vote, what did they see? Record turnout for African Americans, for black folks in Georgia. So they were proven to be liars. But there's more to this story. Because the 14th Amendment, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which is something that we've been all talking about, and certainly I have, is now being used not only to try to get Donald Trump off of the ballot, but others as well. Now, y'all know what's going on in Colorado. You also know what's going on in Maine. But here's a headline from the New York Post. It's not just Donald Trump. Democrats are moving to bar Republicans from ballots nationwide. Yeah, it's an article from Jonathan Turley. It's from the New York Post. So, and by the way, I did tweet this article out. So you've got, of course, what is going on with Donald Trump, but the Democrats are trying to bounce hundreds of Republicans out of Congress using the same rationale, using the same justification. And as I have painstakingly pointed out to you, the 14th Amendment does not apply to Donald Trump, and I don't believe that it applies to elected members of Congress either. But that's what the Democrats are trying to do. Jonathan Turley, again, writes about this in the New York Post, where he talks about how they're trying to bar Republican Scott Perry from the ballot in Pennsylvania. Turley was on Fox News talking about all this.
No, he's basically being accused of being a supporter of insurrection. Right. So it's like being a fellow traveler back in the McCarthy period. And that's become sort of norm now, is that it's not just that you were an insurrectionist, but you supported them, either by voting against certification or doubting the election of Joe Biden. Those are protected acts. They're constitutionally protected acts. And yet they are cited in these filings as evidence that you're either an insurrectionist or a fellow traveler.
Yeah, and the guy who is trying to remove Scott Perry, and Turley's right. I mean, we've been talking about what the squad has been trying to do to remove Republicans. Well, we'll get into that in a sec. But the guy who's trying to remove Scott Perry, his name is Gene Stilp. And so one of the things that old Gene has done is he's actually burned MAGA flags with swastikas outside the courthouse. So clearly this guy is unhinged. But they're so driven by Trump derangement syndrome, these are the kind of things that they do. Now, again, Democrats have been trying to bar hundreds of members of Congress after January 6th. So they're going to keep playing the card. The squad has been behind a lot of this, trying to remove Republicans from their ballots in 2024, because this is something that they continue to do, the squad, and Cori Bush is one, and they're getting dozens of sponsors for the bills as well. Representative Bill Pascrell, a Democrat out of New Jersey, sought to bar 126 members of Congress under the same theory for challenging the election before January 6th of 2021. So basically what's happening is that you have the Democrats pulling out all the stops to keep not only Donald Trump off of the ballot, but also all of these other candidates as well. Turley talks about the 14th Amendment and how it does not apply here. And he was on with Larry Kudlow on Fox Business.
In the past, the 14th Amendment theory has been something of a parlor game for professors. It was an interesting idea. And then it became a very dangerous idea when you had 4 justices of the Colorado Supreme Court embrace it. Now, the good news is that's a court with 7 democratically appointed justices, and 3 of those justices refused. And actually, there was a stinging, visceral dissent asking what the majority thought they were doing here. And then you have Maine, and that's not really a decision. It's in terms of a judicial decision. That is a Secretary of State who has been really hitting Trump and hitting what she calls the insurrection since January 6th. So they knew what they were going to get from her when they filed to remove Trump from the Maine ballot. But now it's going to go to the courts, and real judges are going to have to look at this. And the vast majority of judges have rejected this because it's unfounded and it's dangerous.
The Democrats, they found the template, folks. They found the template, and the template is to use the 14th Amendment to try and keep Democrats, try to keep Republicans off of the ballot, not only Donald Trump, but also Republicans nationwide. And so one of the things that they're doing, and I just played you audio from Jonathan Turley, and I've spoken with Hans von Spakovsky and a lot of other folks talking about how the 14th Amendment, Section 3, does not apply to elected officials, and certainly not to Donald Trump. But they also ignore the fact that they themselves, the Democrats, have done the same exact thing over the years in trying to prevent elections from being certified. Jonathan Turley points out former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Dick Durbin praised the effort by then Senator Barbara Boxer, Democrat out of California, organizing a challenge to the certification of President George W. Bush's 2004 reelection. Remember Jamie Raskin, the Democrat out of Maryland, sought to block certification of the 2016 election result, where Donald Trump won. Particularly ironic, of course, since he is a leading voice in calling for Donald Trump to be disqualified now. And by the way, I've also got audio. I'm going to spare you. I've played it 1,000 times, and other hosts have too, of Democrats denying elections in interviews. You've heard the audio. I've played it a bazillion times. But you've got Hillary, you've got Jimmy Carter, you've got Joe Biden, you've got Kamala Harris, all these folks calling Donald Trump an illegitimate president. And we're talking earlier about how the Democrats, they don't want, by and large, they don't want Joe Biden to run. The rank and file want another candidate to run against the current president. They want more choices because they know that Joe Biden is an absolute train wreck because of his record and because of all of these signs that he is aging and aging badly. And so Jonathan Turley talks about that, and he talks about how the Democrats are really guilty of trying to destroy democracy.
Yeah, it's hard to say you're defending democracy when every action you take is to prevent it from being practiced. Now, you got to keep in mind, of course, that most Democrats in polls have said that they don't want Biden, that they want other choices. And so the party elite is saying that's a dangerous thing. So let's not give them a choice. This will be a one flavor ice cream stand. You either take Biden or you go hungry.
I mean, he's right. Nothing that Jonathan Turley is saying there that is wrong. By the way, I was talking earlier about some of the latest polling from Real Clear Politics and in other places. And just to tell you, I know that the polling is all over the place. But, you know, you look at the polling from yesterday. President Biden, his job approval rating, 56% of Americans disapprove of Joe Biden. Only 40, and that's by Rasmussen, 43% approve of the president. And so when Turley talks about how, by and large, the Democrats want another option, they do. They want another option. In a general election, Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, Trump 42%, Joe Biden 41%. So that is Donald Trump up 1. 2024 presidential nomination for the Republican side, Morning Consult. Donald Trump is at 66. He's in Iowa. I think it's today, right? Trump is in Iowa today. And he is out there campaigning. And he is just, on fire. 66% for Donald Trump. Nikki Haley is at 11%. DeSantis is 11%. Ramaswamy is at 6%. Chris Christie's at 4%. And Asa Hutchinson, why? 1%. Chris Christie's at 4%. Now, Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden. Now, this is interesting. This is the Economist YouGov. This came out yesterday. In a general election, Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden wins 41 to 36%. Now, that is counter to what we've seen in previous polling. Because in previous polling, as you know, and again, I know, it's all over the place. But in previous polling, the big story has been that Nikki Haley would beat Joe Biden by a wider margin than Donald Trump would. But according to the Economist YouGov, Biden is at 41%. Nikki Haley is at 36% in this general election. Same day, general election, Trump versus Biden. Morning Consult has Trump at 42, Biden at 41. See what else is up here. We've got direction of the country. 63% of the American people believe that the country is on the wrong track. I want to know who these 27% are that believe that the country is in the right direction. Remember yesterday we were joking about how I needed a progressive friend, and I was actually taking applications for a progressive friend. If you missed that, I'm sure it was, really enthralling. But I didn't get one email. If you people missed it, I literally asked for a progressive friend. And that if somebody could email me, Dan at 99.7 WTN, and please, let me know if you'd be willing to be my progressive friend. The reason why I'm doing that is because clearly it is only those nut jobs that think that the country is going in the right direction. So I want to know who it is that thinks that the country is going in the right direction. I mean, you could make the argument that the economy is doing better. But by and large, we still have a very challenged economy. People still have the credit card debt from when inflation was at 9.3%. I could go on. But that's part of what's going on, friends.